Hello students, this is Dr. McDill here. I want to welcome you to the book, the How to Read a Book class. And hopefully as you're watching this, you have your copy of the book and you have your syllabus so we can talk about where we are. This is week 2. This should be week 2 on your syllabus. So week 1, which started September 18th, would have covered reading chapter 4, the second level of reading, and doing a pre-read of how to read a book. Chapter 4 told you how to do a pre-read, which is looking at the introduction, looking at the table of contents, and things like that. I hope that that went well for you. If you have any questions about a pre-read, be sure you email me. You can email me with any of your questions or even call me. But my email is matthew.mcdill@gmail.com. That's the best way to get a hold of me. So now we're on week 2. And what we want to talk about is how to do a superficial read. So weeks 2 through 8 are completely reserved for doing a superficial read of the entire book, How to Read a Book. So obviously you have already observed, I hope, that the syllabus is set up for you to use the tools that this book teaches on this book. Now, most people don't have the privilege of using the tools taught in this book to read this book because they would have to read the book to know the tools. But you have the advantage of me. So I read the book, and now I'm showing you how to read this book by using the tools that are in the book. And I think it'll be very helpful. And so I took you to chapter 4 first to show you these initial tools that you can use on the book itself. You did the pre-read, now we're going to talk about a superficial read. So I want to call your attention to a few quotes and instructions from chapter 4. So I'm going to read a few things here from chapter 4 to make sure that we are clear on what it means to do a superficial read. This is from page 36, okay? Everyone has had the experience of struggling fruitlessly with a difficult book that was begun with high hopes of enlightenment. The mistake was in expecting too much from the first going over of a difficult book. Here's more from page 36. In tackling a difficult book for the first time, read it through without ever stopping to look up or ponder the things you do not understand right away. Now, if you've been taught from a more traditional approach, you have been told that when you get to a word you don't understand, you need to stop and look it up. Or if you are reading and don't understand a paragraph, you have to read it again and read it again and read it again until you get it. Here's what's fascinating is that one of the most important changes and rules of how to read a book that this book gives that is contrary to the traditional strategy is that you don't stop to look everything up. And page 43 says that this is the most important rule of all. So this is a pretty big deal. Not only is this the most important rule of all, I have discovered as I have talked about the principles from this book, that it is also the most hated rule. People don't want to do this. Here's the primary reason, is because it immediately implies that you're going to have to read this book twice. Now, in this case, with this book, you are going to have to read it twice. However, that's not always true. Let me see if I can find this quote. Now, I can't find the quote. Yeah, here it is. Even if you never go back, which means if you don't go back and read it again, okay, if you don't read the book twice. Even if you never go back, understanding half of a really tough book is much better than not understanding it at all, which will be the case if you allow yourself to be stopped by the first difficult passage you come to. This is from page 37. Now, we've all experienced that where we try to read a book, it's a difficult book, and we end up just putting it down. then we don't even get the benefit of reading a difficult book, even understanding half of a difficult book. The other thing that he talks about, which I think is extremely helpful, is that most books aren't even worth reading anyway. And so that's why we have the pre-read. It helps us understand how to filter out the books we don't want to read. But there's another kind of book, and that is the kind of book where we want to read the book, but we realize we don't really have to read it all that carefully. I've done that recently. Got a little book, and somebody gave it to me and said, you really should read this book. And so I was using this methodology, and I was going to do a superficial read. And I read the book as fast as I could without stopping. And here's what was interesting. At the end of the book, I concluded this: I don't have to read this book again. Like, I got everything out of it that I need. Think about all the time that we're going to save not giving more energy and focus to a book that doesn't deserve our energy and focus, right? So this is one of the advantages of this approach. So here's your assignment for the next 6 weeks. You're going to read this entire book as fast as you can. That's what you're going to do. You're not going to stop to look things up. You're not going to try to figure it out. You're not going to worry about it if you don't understand something. So, as it says, you want to read through without ever stopping to look up or ponder the things that you do not understand right away. And the theory is this: if you read a whole book that's difficult, all right, then if it's worth reading again and really focusing on, that when you go back and get to those passages and those words and those things are difficult to understand, if you have the whole book in view, you are going to be able to understand those little pieces much, much better. Way better than if you kept reading the same paragraph over and over but didn't understand how it fit into the big picture. So I want to call your attention to another part of this chapter about reading speeds. So here's what I recommend that you do over the next 6 weeks, is look up the table of contents and find out how many pages are in the book, and try to divide up these pages according to the reading periods that you're going to set aside for yourself. So if you're going to read an hour a day, or if you're going to read 20 or 30 minutes a day, a certain number of days of the week, then set yourself a time goal, okay, and sit down and read. But you want to be able to know how many pages you need to get to keep up a pace to finish reading the entire book in 6 weeks. So split up the book into a 6-week period based on how often you're going to read. Or at least know each week how much you're going to have to get done. That way you can gauge yourself. I would also suggest, if you're interested, in actually timing yourself to know how fast you are reading, how many pages you're reading a minute. Because hopefully by the end of this, you're going to be a much faster reader. This is one of the skills that we're going to have to develop, is knowing how to read faster than we normally read. Here's a quote from page 40. "The student can read as fast as his mind will let him, not as slow as his eyes make him." So a lot of times we feel like that we are inhibited from reading faster because we're not understanding what we're reading. But usually what keeps us from reading faster is that we are limited by how fast our eyes can process the words, not by how fast our mind can process the meaning. So if we can actually train our eyes to move faster over the words, we are going to be able to read faster because our mind can process the meanings pretty quickly. So it gives the instructions there on pages 40 and 41. You might want to look at that. Place your thumb and your first 2 fingers together. Sweep this pointer across a line of type a little faster than is comfortable for your eyes to move. Force yourself to keep up with your hand. You will very soon be able to read the words as you follow your hand. Keep practicing this and keep increasing the speed at which your hand moves. And before you know it, you will have doubled or trebled your reading speed. So this is a simple thing that you can be using while you're doing this to enhance your reading speed. Now, here's another thing about doing a superficial read and trying to read faster, and that is you don't actually have to read every word of a book when you're doing a superficial read. So there are times that I come to a paragraph and realize that I basically already understand what's going on. I read the first couple of sentences and I realize what the point of the paragraph is, and maybe I notice that the rest of the paragraph is just giving an example of a concept I already understand. And so I just kind of skim over that. I don't have to stop and read every word. So there's a way, it's a skill that you're going to have to develop, you may not have it yet, to where you can look at a paragraph and kind of see what's going on in that paragraph and decide if you need to read it or how quickly you need to read it. So there are going to be some times, even in a pre-read, that you're going to be reading a lot faster because you know what's going on, or a little bit slower. You don't want to go too slow, but a little bit slower, so that you can try to process what's being conveyed if it's brand new material. So this is your assignment, as I've already mentioned, for weeks 2 through 8, and for this class that means September 25th through October 3rd. Complete a superficial read of how to read a book. Follow the instructions in Chapter 4 for inspectional reading 2, the second kind of inspectional reading. Push yourself and read the entire book as quickly as you can. Record your reading time and pages each day to see how fast you are reading. Okay, I want to make myself available to you couple of ways. One is, if you watch this and you still don't know exactly what you're doing and you want some help, then just be sure you email me, okay? And then maybe we can set up a phone call if you'd like to. As you go over the next few weeks, you may have questions about how this is working, or maybe you feel like this isn't working and you need some help on it. Well, please just feel free to email me and I'll be glad to set something up and talk to you about it. Okay, I think that's it. I want you to do the best you can, and this is my final motivation. Okay, and I haven't been able to tell you this just by way of introducing the class and the book, and that is not, I guess, to brag, but you know, of course I did my college degree, a bachelor's of science and communication. And then I did 2 master's degrees and a PhD. So I've read a lot of books, and I've had to do a lot of research. But here's what's fascinating. I did not know how to read a book until just a couple of years ago when I read How to Read a Book. Okay? I just want to tell you, as an experienced reader, that the principles in this book are game changers. Okay? They are going to change the way that you read for the rest of your life. They're going to save you a lot of time. They're going to give you the tools you need to be a lifelong learner, because you're going to be able to process books. You're going to be able to read anything you want as fast as you want. And you're not going to have to waste time on things that aren't necessary for your education or necessary for the skill or knowledge that you're trying to gain at any particular time. So what I'm trying to do, even though you're already committed to this class, I hope, what I'm trying to do is encourage you in this. You are now going to stretch yourself. You're going to do something while you do a superficial read of this book that is uncomfortable. It's going to stretch your brain. It's going to stretch your mind. It's not going to be easy. It may even be contrary to some of the things that you've already learned about reading. My encouragement is to press yourself, press into it, do it anyway. It's going to be worth it. No pain, no gain. You're not going to grow in understanding. You're not going to be able to be better in your mind until you do hard things with your mind and you press through it. So this is something that, of course, our culture and our generation have a hard time with. We just want to do the easy things, and that's why we don't read hard books. But we are not going to be a part of that generation. And so I encourage you to tackle this and do it, because it's going to be worth it, and this is going to be one of the most important skills that you're going to have for the rest of your life. Okay. So I'm signing off. Be sure you let me know if you have questions and contact me. And after the 6 weeks, we'll go ahead and reconnect and talk about if we're going to have some video chats, or if I might put up some more videos like this so we can move forward in the material. Okay, see you later.